Hi, I'm Greg Hunter. This is the weekly news wrap-up, WNW 163 for Friday, October 24th, 2014. Well, it's another week. It's another infected Ebola victim. This time, a young doctor who was treating Ebola patients, Doctors Without Borders, over in West Africa. This is a doctor that got Ebola and got into the country. And this after earlier this week, USA Today prints this headline, the government comes out, U.S. ramps up fight on Ebola. They're ramping up the fight on Ebola. I don't know how they're doing that. There's no travel ban. They keep letting people come into the country who are infected, like this doctor, and they keep telling people to calm them down that, oh, we've got it, and now we have all these hospitals. There's a press conference in New York City. We have 8 hospitals that can handle Ebola. Why are you ramping up for Ebola? Why are you telling people we've got tons of hospitals that can take Ebola cases? 75,000 people a year die of infections, not Ebola, infections in hospitals. They can't handle staph infections and other infections, and they think every hospital is going to be able to handle this disastrous disease, this virus, Ebola, that everybody's going to be up to speed when doctors who are trained get Ebola and bring it here. And for the life of me, I don't understand why there is no mandatory quarantine, a travel ban, travel restrictions. Instead, we're going to let them in and keep track of them. Hundreds of people from West Africa who have been to West Africa every month. Hundreds. We're going to keep track of them. Hundreds and hundreds more than hundreds. We're going to keep track of them. I'm thinking to myself, this is so idiotic. Why keep track of anyone when you can just keep them out or quarantine them or at least test them so you don't have to track, hundreds and then thousands and then maybe tens of. Why in the world are they doing this? And then why in the world do they keep telling us, oh, be calm, we have lots of hospitals, everything's okay. Oh, remember they told us there wouldn't be any Ebola here at all. Then we had a case of, he's going to be, nope, that didn't happen. Nurses got infected. Now we have another doctor, still no travel ban. Here in North Carolina, Tom Tillis is running against Kay Hagan. The Democrat Hagan is calling for a travel ban. You can bet the Democrats are freaking out. Get a few more of these Ebola cases, or they get an outbreak or a minor outbreak, and the economy is going to plunge, and so are the Democrats' chances in the midterm elections. This is absolutely crazy time. And here, you want to hear something else that's absolutely disturbing and crazy? Ron Klain, who is the new Ebola czar, when asked in an interview not long ago, they said, what's the worst problem in the world? This quote is all over the internet, printed in many different stories. This is his reported quote. What's the biggest fear that the world has? And he says, quote, how to deal with the continually growing population. How to deal with the continually growing population. The biggest fear he has in the world is overpopulation. Oh, that should make you feel all nice and warm and fuzzy. The new Ebola czar that has 0 medical experience. He's the guy Obama picks to try to thwart and tackle this unbelievable disease that has about a 70% mortality rate. That's the guy. Ron Klain is the guy they put in charge. The guy who's worried about overpopulation. Well, no travel ban, and, the population problem could take care of itself here in America. Terror everywhere, and up in Canada, you had this big gunfire erupts at the Parliament building. It was an ugly thing. You have, a guy in New York City swinging an axe at police officers. Sad thing is, before they blew him away, he chopped up a couple of officers. They're alive. One of them's in serious condition. But the sad thing is, they didn't shoot him before he hacked up, some cops. And what's the big difference between terror in Canada and terror in the United States? Well, when it's Islamic terror, the Canadians call it what it is, Islamic terror. When it happens down here, the person's crazy or it's workplace violence, even though the suspect is cutting off the head of somebody, screaming out, Allah Akbar, it's just workplace violence. Or he's shooting people at, a fort, at a military installation, screaming out Allah Akbar. But that's just workplace violence here in America, not Islamic terror. And folks, as I've been telling you, a while back, I said, hey, make no mistake, we are at war with Islamic extremists. We're not at war with Islam, but we are at war with Islamic extremists. So you have to think that more of this is on the way. And if we can't identify the fact that we are at war with Islamic extremists, it's going to be awful hard to fight it. I'll tell you what, those New York City cops, in New York City, they know they're at war with Islamic extremists, and you can expect they'll be shooting a lot quicker than they did this past time. But thank goodness none of the cops were killed. One is hurt seriously. But this is outrageous that we can't call this what it is, Islamic terror. That's exactly what it is. Well, good news at the gas pump, and I guess you've all been seeing this. This is just in a local paper here, and if you look up here, gas prices, several months ago, it was over $3.66 an average, and then if you come down here, it's down to something like, there we go, $3.02 a gallon. Here in my area, you can see it for under $3 a gallon in North Carolina. And that is good news. It's going to help people out. It's like a little boost in the economy, but it isn't all good news. I mean, a lot of these shale companies need oil prices at $85 a barrel to make money, and which dipped down to, $82, $83 a barrel. And, these shale companies are highly leveraged companies. And if this stays, the oil price stays down, these companies could go belly up. Now, Saudi Arabia, that was pumping tons of oil, has finally started to restrict production because they can see oil in free fall, and, they're taking a hit, so they have curtailed some production. Now, this is partly supply demand, but partly this is financial warfare, and it's really financial warfare against Russia. Look at this thing in USA Today. It's a fascinating little story because they don't talk about financial warfare. They just talk about lower oil prices push Russia to the brink. They're talking about 0.8% growth. They're talking about 8% inflation. And, they're talking about Russia is, half its income is derived from energy sales, oil. And, Russia's taken a big hit. They have big inflation, and this is destabilizing to Russia. Now, I don't want any country destabilized that way. You don't know what's going to take the place of Vladimir Putin. But Russia, the West, the U.S., is committing financial warfare against Russia. And as Jim Rickards said on USA Watchdog recently, Russia's not going to take that. They're not going to sit back and take that. They could have viruses. They could have warfare of their own. Russia's buying tons of gold, continues to do so. So does China. Gold's being bought up around the world. Russia's big ally, China, is opening up yuan swaps everywhere in the world. Now they're talking about renminbi swap, yuan swap in Canada. When that happens, I don't see how the dollar stays afloat. I mean, there's some people saying, the dollar's going to be strong for years and years in the future. And I know we're the cleanest dirty shirt in the hamper, but, the world is not going to allow us continually to print money, pay our bills, buy oil. It's just not going to do it. I mean, we're approaching $18 trillion. And in one of my interviews this week with Michael Snyder, I basically said, hey, we don't really intend to pay this off, right? He agreed. We don't. We can't. We have no intention of paying this off. And when the rest of the world wakes up or the rest of the world decides to, okay, now it's time to do something, it's either take a hit this way or take a hit that way. Well, we'll take it our way. And, the yuan is growing as a trade currency, and I know it's dwarfed by the U.S. dollar, but as this progresses, I mean, the rest of the world has to say, sure, United States, you can print all the money you want. You can give out free iPhones and free cell phones and Obamacare to, people that aren't even your citizens. No problem. You just keep printing money, and you can keep using it in the world, and that is going to end. And I think this little Ponzi scheme, when I did consumer investigative reporting, and whenever we had a Ponzi scheme, they never ended slowly. Ponzi schemes and frauds, and this is a giant fraud in the world, always boom. And then one day, it was over, just like that. Just like Forrest Gump, just like Bernie Madoff. One day, he was a hero going to his, his Hamptons home, and on Monday, his whole world, boom, crashed, and the FBI was in his office. And that's the way frauds end, and I don't know when this is going to end, but end it will. Every reliable economist, even in the mainstream, say this is unsustainable. And we're not cutting anything. We couldn't cut $85 billion in a year. And cut back on? No, just keep printing money. Just keep piling it on. Just keep on piling it on. That's what the plan is until it blows up, I guess. And then I guess everybody in our government will act surprised. But this is economic warfare against Russia, and it's perpetrated on Russia by the U.S., by the West, and now we're hearing that, the winter's coming on, and I've been warning you about how Russia's not going to take this. They're saying they're negotiating with the EU and Ukraine. Ukraine's dead broke. The only thing they have is loans from the IMF. So Ukraine's dead broke. They have to be backed by the EU. We started this whole Ukraine coup during the Sochi Winter Olympics, and now Russia's saying, hey, we'll sell Ukraine natural gas. Somebody has to guarantee the payment. And the EU is balking. And we're not even into the winter yet. We're still in fall. Russia's not going to sit there and give out natural gas this winter on credit. Somebody is going to have to pay the bill. Somebody's going to have to step up and keep the people from Ukraine from freezing. And I think Russia is just going to cut off the gas if they don't get paid. And Ukraine is just about completely bankrupt. Yes, they have natural resources, but Ukraine can't pay. And we're talking they need, $3, $4, $5 billion just this winter to pay for their natural gas. And in case you haven't noticed, things in the EU aren't going well for the economy. I mean, even Germany is having big declines in its production and sales and GDP. Even Germany is having trouble, and they are the cleanest dirty shirt in the hamper. They're the engine, the growth engine of the European Union. And when they start having trouble, the whole European Union is going to have trouble. But look for this to get nastier and nastier. I mean, the shooting war has died down a little bit, but the financial war is going full blast. And finally, just something I saw that was in the paper, earlier this week, and this happened actually last week. Finally, Janet Yellen. Janet Yellen says, just look at this headline, and see if it hits you the same way. Inequality worsening, says the Fed chairwoman. Income inequality worsening. She talked about this late last week, and I got to tell you, that's a woman that has got some gall. I mean, at one point, what were they printing? $45 billion a month last year and handing over half of it out to the bankers, and the other half they were buying Treasury. $45 billion a month. They were creating nearly a half a trillion dollars a year, and picking winners and handing it out to their banking buddies and buying this toxic debt from their banking buddies, then taking it off their books. At 25 billion every month, and Janet Yellen has the gall to talk about inequality worsening. Are you got to be kidding me? Is there anybody in the press that can just stand up and say, excuse me, Miss Yellen, didn't you print hundreds of billions of dollars and hand it to the banks and buy the toxic junk they created to bail them out? I mean, isn't that a little bit unequal? Unbelievable, really. Unbelievable. And I blame a lot of this on our press that's been bought and paid for, that will not ask any government figure, or in this case the Federal Reserve, not a government agency, or any figure that is subcontracted to handle government business, that's the Fed. They won't ask them anything, any hard questions. None at all. Thank you very much for supporting USAWatchdog.com. I'm Greg Hunter. That's the way I see it. Thank you also for your comments and donations. Have a nice weekend. And this is the best part of the newscast, folks. Remember, fear not.